Gina, welcome to the Women Going Big podcast. I am thrilled personally to have you on the show. Um, I read your bio, and I generally like to let my guests kind of tell their own story, but we are just going to dive right in. Gina, how are you going big?
Okay, so the way I'm going big is I'm in India. I came here 1 year ago for 1 month. Supposedly, 1 month was my intention. And I've actually created an entire life here and relaunched my business from here and managed to keep growing my career. And yeah, 1 year later, I'm here in India.
I just got goosebumps. I have so many questions too. How did that even come up? Like, what was your initial decision to be like, you know what? I don't want to be here in New Mexico, which I don't really blame you. But how did you, why India?
Yeah, it's a really, really wild story. It started, I got divorced. I left my wife, and in the process of that, like I used to have a sourdough bakery, and I baked out of my garage, and I really wanted to like keep my business going. And in that process, shortly after divorcing my wife, I put an offer on a house down the street from her. I wanted to like continue living my old life so badly. I wanted to be near her kids, who I'd been raising for the last 5 years. I wanted my business to kind of stay pretty much the same as it had been. And so I was like, I put an offer in on a house that was right down the street from my ex. And none of my friends thought that was weird. None of my friends were like, Gina, what are you doing? But my yoga teacher, who I met with on Zoom at the time, he was like, Gina, what are you what are you doing? He was like, you just got divorced like 11 days ago. Why are you trying to recreate your old life right next to your old life? Like he's like, you have an amazing opportunity right now. And like this is what he said. He said, you should go on a road trip where nobody knows your name, like Denver. And I was like, that sounds cool, Pat. Like that's a good idea. I'm gonna pull the offer out on the house. I'm gonna like go figure that out. And so I hung up with him on Zoom, and I texted my real estate agent to pull the offer. And then I was like, I'm going to India. Like that was my first reaction in that moment was I'm going to India. Um, so I practice a very specific type of yoga called Ashtanga yoga. It's a really intense practice, 6 days a week, very structured sequence that you do. And Ashtanga yoga was actually born in the city of Mysore in India. So um, a lot of a lot of Ashtangis have this like pilgrimage they make, and they come and practice here, usually for 1 month, sometimes 2 months. And that was something that I had always wanted to do in my life. So I thought, why not go to Mysore? Let's see what it's like to center my life around yoga for 1 month and see how things go. That's how I ended up here.
I so I love that. So I practice yoga. I have been for several years, and I've heard of Ashtanga yoga, but I have never taken it. I think we have one teacher that does it, that offers it. And this is not like your typical like white girl yoga. Like they're very based in like the spiritual aspect of it. Um, but and this is just for my own curiosity, can you describe the difference between Ashtanga yoga and regular like vinyasa or anything else?
So Ashtanga yoga is actually like the mother yoga of Vinyasa yoga. So Ashtanga is like the original. Um, Basically, it's a set sequence. It starts with sun salutations, and there's standing poses and seated poses, and in between each of those poses is a vinyasa. Vinyasa, the term in Sanskrit, actually just means like linked breath. It's like the one movement per breath thing comes from Ashtanga yoga. So the Ashtanga has been practiced in Mysore for a very long time, and was popularized by this man named Patabi Joyce, who died in 2009. But he was like kind of the main guy of Ashtanga yoga from like 1930 until 2009. And what happened was in the 1970s, some Americans were like trekking through India and heard there was this guru that was healing people with yoga, and he was just healing like this was before the West had yoga. He was just healing local Indians practicing yoga, And those original people, there were three Americans, those are the people that actually brought yoga to the West. And basically all the yoga that we see in yoga studios in the United States are like riffs of Ashtanga yoga or Hatha yoga. So it's like two schools. Anything that's a vinyasa based yoga, their lineage is somewhere connected to this practice. So Ashtanga yoga itself is an ancient practice, has a lot of roots in Hinduism. It's very, very spiritual. You have a deep connection with your guru. And it's, yeah, there's a whole philosophy that goes with it.
And I wish, this is just me being a little bit selfish, but I have changed so much as a person in my practice. It went from, and even for me in the beginning, it wasn't even so much a physical thing as it was like a mind thing. And I needed something. I needed something, and that was it for me. And I wish more people took it for what it is and not what the West has made it. So that is my own soapbox that I don't get to talk about very often. So I'm thrilled I have somebody that appreciates that standpoint. Um, okay, so you you said you pulled the offer on the house, and right away you said, "All right, it's India. Like I'm going to India." What was the time frame from the time that you decided that to when you landed?
Like 3 weeks.
Oh my gosh.
3 weeks. I took all my stuff. I put it in storage. I like I got gave away so much, most of my clothes, a whole bunch of things. Um, just with the idea of like when I come back, I don't want to deal with these things. Thinking again that it was going to be 1 month. Um, but yeah, like a lot of that was like I had to buy a plane ticket. I had to figure out where I was going to live. I had to get a visa. Like all these things. Like 3 weeks planning a trip to India is like many people spend a year planning a trip like this.
I went to Japan just in February, and it felt like I was planning for that trip for a year. And um, for the stars to line up and for everything to just fall into place for that to happen, that had to have been just really reaffirming that that was the right action for you. Because, like you said, there's a lot of things that could have gone wrong.
Absolutely. Yeah. So part of my approach to life in general, I'm a practicing witch, and so this is a big part of my life is like trusting the universe and checking in with the cards and with the energy to make sure that things are right. And this whole time when I was trying to buy this house, again, this is like a very crunch time frame. There's like 2 months between me leaving my wife and me ending up in India, and there's a house offer in there. So like there's a lot of things that were happening. But like the whole time I was trying to get this house, like it was really weird. Like things didn't feel right. Like the only houses that were popping up for sale in my budget were like in our neighborhood, like in like down the street from my ex. Like I was like, I don't want to live near her, but it's the only houses that are available. And I thought, that was kind of weird, but I was like, maybe it's a sign I'm supposed to stay close or something like that. And I kept pulling cards, like seeing like, am I going to find my home? And there were all these like answers that were kind of like, your home is where you are. It's like, and I was just obsessed with like, I needed a place to live. I really thought like I was living in an Airbnb at the time. I was just like, I really need a house so I can get my oven in there and start baking my bread again. And it just was, nothing was lining up. But as soon as I was like, I'm going to India, it was like everything, everything just lined up perfectly. Like, the plane ticket prices had just dropped like from the day that I had just checked. My visa went through without any issues. Like everything just lined up, and I found a yoga school to enroll in. With short notice, like it wasn't fully booked. Everything just felt really perfect.
So let's fast forward a little bit. You get to India. You probably get to what, that 3 week point where you start probably having to think about coming home. But what was that moment for you when you realized that, oh, I am not supposed to go home? I'm supposed to stay here. And then what did that look like for you?
Yeah, it happened kind of. It wasn't all at once. I never imagined being here a year. Even in December, I didn't think I would still be here by the end of April. But when I was doing my teacher training, that I was when I first arrived here. I came here to do a 500-hour certification. I had my 200-hour prior. I was enrolled in a yoga school, and many of my classmates were local Indian people, and they were all like, "If you want to have an Indian vacation, you have to leave Mysore. You've got to go to Goa." And I'm like, "I don't know what Goa is. I've never heard of Goa." And they're like, "You've just got to go to Goa. Like, don't buy your plane ticket home from here. Buy it home from Goa." And I was like, "Okay, cool." So I googled Ashtanga Goa, and I didn't know this at the time. Like I feel like it feels silly to not know this now, but I found this yoga retreat center called Purple Valley Yoga that was open for their very first monsoon season retreat schedule. And Purple Valley Yoga is like the most famous Ashtanga retreat center in the world. And I didn't even know. If like you look on YouTube for Ashtanga videos, they're the they're the people that are making the content. All the big teachers are teaching there, and usually they're closed during monsoon season because monsoon season in Goa is constant rain, like sheets of rain, 30 days without sun. Um, but I was like, cool, I'm just going to go. I'm going to go to Goa for 1 week. I'm going to check out this retreat center. And then I'm going to head, actually, this plan, I was going to head to Paris. My whole idea was like, I'm going to see Europe and then I'll go home because I did not want to spend 24 hours on a plane. I will never spend 24 hours on a plane ever again in my life. That was the worst part of this whole thing. So I get to Goa. I meet my new teacher. His name's John, and I'm like instantly connected. He is bringing like this new depth to my practice. I'm feeling like I'm learning all this kinds of new things, and like there's zero chance I'm going to spend 1 week here. Like I'm going to extend it. So I changed the Paris plane ticket. I pushed it back 1 week, and I stayed another week and go. I did this 6 times. Like I really kept thinking like one more week, one more week. What ended up happening, Paris, I lost so much money on Paris, like probably a couple $1,000, like by changing my plane ticket so many times and canceling my booking.com reservation so many times. But I ended up actually following my teacher, John, and his wife, Martha, to Singapore, where I lived for 1 month, nannying for them and practicing at their yoga shala in Singapore, because they recommended that I study with the head guru of Ashtanga Yoga. His name is Sharath Joyce. He's the grandson of the father of Ashtanga Yoga that I'm talking about. So they're his students, and you can only practice with him if you get recommended by one of his students. And they recommended I practice with him. So I went to Singapore to burn some time before my residency with Sharath Joyce, which was last year in October and November.
That is amazing.
Yeah, things just really lined up.
Yeah, like every single thing. Oh my gosh, I love all of that. So let's see. Let's get a little deeper. So yoga is part of it. Can you kind of dive into some of the other tools that you use just in your day-to-day life? I know I looked on your Instagram. You do a lot of tarot reading. What does your practice look like? Because I don't think, at least for me, I would. Okay, so this is maybe a super sidebar. I would what you would call like uh an entry level, like spiritual, like I'm interested, but like I also would not even know where to start, right? Like I'm kind of intrigued by crystals. That's about my level. Okay. So break it down like as if you were talking to a kindergartner.
That's perfect actually, because my business itself, I had the bakery, but I have a witchcraft business called Rise, and my whole thing is that I'm also a professor, and I like to say I'm your professor turned witch. Like my big goal is actually teaching about magical practices, and that's like the thing that I'm most passionate about. So my main focus, my foci in my witchcraft practices is I read tarot cards, I do Reiki, and I'm an astrologer. And that's in addition to, I think yoga is its own magic, and it's spiritual, and it's all tapped in. It's all in the same source energy. It's all in the same plane. But yeah, so it all started with tarot cards. I in my first divorce, fun fact, I have big life things happen in my divorces, but in my first divorce, I started reading tarot cards as kind of a way to like have some hope, to get through the hard times of being left, for somebody else. It was really rough for me, and I really just wanted to believe there was something else out there for me. And the cards are really, really good at doing that. So I'm a big believer in checking in with the energy of the universe, and tarot cards are just one of like a million ways that you can actually do that. But what I find really, really beautiful about tarot cards is there's 78 cards. They're separated into two different categories. There's the major arcana, which kind of represent like the hero's journey. And then there's the minor arcana, which is almost identical to like a playing card deck with like four suits, 10 cards plus court cards. And all of these cards together represent the archetypes of an entire human experience. Everything from your biggest joy to your biggest loss and everything in between. Um, and somehow in 78 cards, it's like a genius system. We are able to get all the full spectrum of human emotion and human experience. Um, and so you can use the cards by using either a specific spread or asking specific questions and drawing those cards to glean meaning from whatever you're going through. So my personal practice, anytime I'm making a rough decision or I'm feeling torn about something or I'm feeling really lost about the future, I'm going to pull a card. I'm going to see what's up. But also, I'm doing this thing right now called the Fool's Journey, where actually it started in January of 2022. I started with the very first card of the tarot deck, which is the Fool, and I set it up on my altar. And the whole thing with this game I'm playing with myself is I have this card present and in front of me all the time. I see it all the time. And then once the card's meaning makes sense for what I'm going through at this moment in my life, then I move on to the next card. And so in January 2022, it hit me that I needed to get sober. The Fool for me was like diving deep into sobriety, taking the leap away from alcohol, away from any sort of substances, and going sober. And from that moment, I've been sober. I have like I have the cards to thank for that. Like I realized that my relationship with alcohol needed to be um, really teased out. But those cards, so you move on to the next one and the next one. When I got to the Emperor, I realized that I needed to go back to yoga. I hadn't been practicing yoga for a few years, and the Emperor, it's the fourth card of the tarot deck. And it was like, Gina, you need to go back to yoga. So I went back to yoga and then I started teaching yoga. As you can see, like this is all like building the story that actually leads me to India. Um, when I was going through the divorce, I was on the Wheel of Fortune, which is like chaos. You have no idea what's about to happen. I had no idea what was about to happen. The divorce was finalized with the Justice card. Like this stuff like is actually unbelievable. I'm actually moving through the hero's journey, and I'm currently on the Sun, which I'm like excited. The Sun is a card of like amazing joy and abundance, and so I'm really excited to see where that card heads. And then I'm getting a little sad. There's only two cards left in the major arcana after the Sun. So the journey is wrapping up and then you have to start over or pretend like you're not or just pretend it never happened. I'm not sure. But that's the whole philosophy on it, is that it's representing the whole spectrum of a journey. And I can attest, like it lines up. Like you move through those archetypes. It's life isn't as random as we act like it is. There's like a blueprint for sure.
Yeah, and that is something that I like. One of my sayings, and it's funny that this is coming to me now, it's always kind of been a phrase that comes back to me when I need it or like at pivotal moments of my life. And it's there are no coincidences, just consequences. And it's so true. Like everything in your story is connected and obviously has happened because it was supposed to happen that way. But I think that people can make those ties themselves. And my biggest thing is like, this is my Roman Empire. I don't know. Have you heard that thing where like guys think about the Roman Empire like once a day?
Yeah.
My Roman Empire is that I don't understand how some people can go through life not just like letting things happen to them. And I don't even think, like, with the awareness level that I'm on now, is I don't even think that it's just things happening to them. I think that it's just like they're not like they just go through life like not even aware of the things happening to them. And that's crazy to me because I just can't imagine just pretending that. I don't know. Like a good example is like when people are like, "Oh, my luck is so bad. Like all of these bad things keep happening to me." And I'm like, "Well, like how much of that is perspective? Like what can you take from this? What is the world trying to tell you?" I don't know. So that is my I like the random things that I think about every day is insane.
I definitely believe there are no coincidences. I'm like I'm known for like tying things together in my friends always make fun of me. They're like, Gina will find a coincidence. And like, there's no deeper meaning. I'm like, yes, there is. Yes, there is. So, and I've kind of created a life kind of around these synchronicities. I read this book like 4 years ago called Signs, the Secret Language of the Universe. And its basic argument was like, the universe doesn't speak English. It's not like, hey, Gina, you should do this. It's like, it has certain things it can do. It can present you with symbols, it can present you with colors, it can present you with numbers, but it doesn't have a voice and it's not speaking to you. And so this book mostly talked about how you can talk to the dead, which isn't really my practice of magic, but I took a lot from this book, and so like I always wear the color orange. I'm obsessed with the color orange. Orange is my whole life. I love orange, but when I see things that are orange, I always take it as like a sign. So I meet someone for the first time and they're wearing orange pants, because most people don't actually wear orange. Like you actually don't see it that often. When I see someone wearing orange pants, I'm like, they're gonna be big. Or I walk into someone's house and they have an orange couch, and I'm like, we're gonna have a great time. Or like an orange car drives by. Like I'm always looking for like these little symbols because I really don't believe that there are any coincidences. And like the orange thing has become my little green light of like, oh, everything's gonna be great, everything's gonna be safe. Yeah, and India has orange in its flag, so it makes it perfect.
So I'm curious. Before I forget, you had just kind of touched on it, but I think one maybe misconception about, and I don't, and just so I don't say it wrong, like, would you consider, because it's a life practice for you, like being a practicing witch, like is like, would you consider it a lifestyle? Like, how would you describe that?
Yeah, I think it's like a spiritual practice. I think it falls along like it teeters on the line of religion, but I think the big difference between religion and a spiritual practice is that religion usually has like a guiding body, a structure, a leader, a text, a space, and witchcraft is very much from the self. It's a connection of the self to nature, and the self to the stars, the self to your own healing. Like witches are the original healers. Like the doctors in original like old cultures, old society, they were witches. Like they were, gathering herbs and praying and asking the fire for a healthy birth or whatever it might be. But like it's witchcraft. Like this is all paganism, which is all existed before like organized religion. So for me, it's a lifestyle. It's a belief system. It's my way of checking in with the energy, making sure that I'm living a life that's aligned. Something that I've gotten a lot better at doing since getting sober and being really intentional with my energy. Um, and it's also a way for me to heal myself, heal my past traumas, get over like my old blockages. And it's also a way for me to heal people in my community, heal people I come across, and clients that I work with as well. So I think that's the most amazing thing about magic and witchcraft practices is that like by being this reflective and asking yourself these deep questions, you're doing the work that like there's no other way to do it besides like therapy. And what's more powerful though than doing this on yourself?
And I have to say too is that I don't even think therapy, and I think that there probably are some practitioners that I would say blend the practice of like self awareness into therapy. But like for the most part, your general Western therapist, you're not going to get that healing that you can do. And again, I would say like my journey is very surface level. Just in the last like couple years, would I say that I've become like more aware of my actions and just my general life, the things happening to me, and vice versa. Um, but yeah, no, I don't. I think it's like you said, it's only something that you can intentionally do, and it's not something that somebody else can give you.
Exactly.
Okay, so I've had this question like at the front of my head since this conversation started, but how can that spiritual practice, how can tarot cards, like, how can that help other women go big? Like, how can somebody, maybe like somebody like me who is interested but has never done it, how would we even start? Like, where would you recommend starting?
Yeah, I think that the first thing, and it's like hard and it's also really really simple, is you've got to start listening to your intuition. You've got to learn to tune out all of these other voices of like the shoulds and the coulds and the other people's opinions, people pleasing. It's got to be the first thing that you knock down, because your intuition is your higher self. That's the thing we're trying to tap into. And it's what I've found in my practice is that getting in tune with your intuition is like working out in the gym. Like you can't just be like, I have a really, 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 really big decision to make right now, and I need to know the answer. Like the universe is gonna be like, you have been ignoring me for years, and now you want me to give you the right answer. You've got to use your intuition daily. You've got to let it become strong. You've got to get really familiar, cultivate a relationship with that voice inside of you, so that you can really recognize it when you have that big decision to make, so you don't even have to question it. You don't have to wonder what's going on. And so actually find tarot cards, like just buying a deck and learning to trust your intuition. Pull a card a day, look at it. Don't look on the internet, don't look in the book. Look at the card and be like, what is this card telling me? How is this card relating to what I'm going through in my life right now? What emotions are present in this card that are present in me right now? What's it trying to tell me? And these kinds of questions, when we ask ourselves, your intuition loves this, because it's like, I have answers for you. I have thoughts about this. And like, who gives a shit if it's the right meaning of the card? Because like the whole point of the card is that it's supposed to be talking to you. It's supposed to tell you, you know, what's good in your life, or answering your question. And like some blog on the internet's going to have one meaning, but the book inside the tarot deck's going to have another meaning. I'm going to have a different meaning, and you're going to have a different meaning, because we all have different experiences with these cards. And so like this is just like one way that I love tarot as a tool, because it's like a really concrete way that we can test our intuition. We can pull out a card, pull out our journal, and just start writing, and let that relationship build. There's no like, there's nothing standing in your way for that, right? There's no big secret to it beyond like, you just got to start talking to yourself.
Well, and I think that so for me, I came from a like a very religious household. Like I just grew up that way. I was around religious people. And so for me, like, and I don't want to say like mentally there's a block, but like there is a little bit of a mental block, because that's the way I was raised. That no, this is like, this goes against everything I was taught to believe. But like, I don't, and it's not even just you, but I don't like, it doesn't make sense that something like that could be bad, right? And the way you're talking about it now is like your intuition is not bad. That is something inherently inside of you. Like you have that. No, everybody has that. And so like working that muscle out, there's nothing wrong with that. And using the cards as tools, like, it just in my head, it's so weird, right? Coming from a religious background and now having this conversation. So,
Yeah, well, I was raised Mormon, so I get you. Like,
oh, okay, perfect.
I get it. And also, I think we're not that different. Nobody is as different as they think they are. Like in the Mormon church, I was raised saying, listen to the Holy Spirit. Like the Holy Spirit is telling me to do what, the Holy Spirit is your higher self. The Holy Spirit is the voice of the universe. Like name it whatever you want to name it. They're telling us the same thing. But I also think that because the media with capital M is so Christian based and so fearful of the unknown, we have done no favors for witchcraft in movies and TV and like in a media like sense, because all the portrayals of tarot that I have seen are like, oh, the death card, you're gonna die, or like, oh, something terrible is gonna happen. I have this omen. Like, it's always these terrible things. And like, yes, the death card exists, but what if I told you the death card doesn't mean you're gonna die? Because there's not a 1 in 78 chance that you're gonna die, right? The death card is asking you what needs to die. What do you need to let go of? What dead weight are you holding on to that is just ready for you to turn it into compost, to start something new, to start something fresh? The death card isn't that scary, actually, when you think of it like that. It's like, oh, it's a relief. Like, I thought I had to carry this around, and now I get to let go of this really heavy burden. How liberating. Now I've got to figure out how to do that. But like, I realize now that I don't need to carry it. And that's because I pulled this card. Um, and so like, I think that that's the biggest block that people have with tarot is like this. We've been told since we were little, like, oh, don't mess with those. They have bad spirits, or like they're gonna cause bad things, or you're gonna see the future and you're not gonna be able to take it back. And this is the other thing with tarot is like, there's nothing on this planet that is going to make decisions for you and control the outcome of your future. You are the person that makes your decisions and controls your outcome. Tarot is a reflective tool. So you can ask it questions about the future and you're going to get answers that are options for your future. It's never going to say, you're going to die, or like, you're going to face this hard challenge and not survive it. Like, it's going to be like, you might run into an obstacle, and then you can pull another card and be like, what's that obstacle going to be like? How might I get through that obstacle? Like, you're not stuck with this one like dead end answer. And in that, I have found that tarot is incredibly liberating. I used to be such an anxious person. I used to dread the future. I used to worry about what was coming. I used to not trust myself. This is like a really big thing, self-trust. Like, so many of us don't trust our decisions, don't trust the options we're presented with, don't trust our own perception. And by reading cards, you can harness all of that. You can trust yourself. You can let go of the fear of the future because you know that you have the options available to you. It's like, it's one of the most beautiful tools.
And I don't know, like, really frankly, have never had a conversation with somebody about this. So this is phenomenal just for my own knowledge too. But I think so many people need to hear this. Because again, I don't think a lot of people realize they have the option to grow that muscle, or that it's so easy to do. The other kind of like little, well, I don't want to call it a thing, but another practice that like I've really been working on lately is meditation. And the Western idea of meditation is, okay, you have to sit there and turn your brain off, and you get some elevated level of higher knowledge. And that is like so not the case.
Right.
But it's practicing, like you said, it's practicing listening to, what is that voice telling you? What is your intuition telling you in that moment? And it's a beautiful thing, I think, when somebody can, even if it's glimpses, because like even myself is I'm not at that point where I am regularly daily in tune with what's going on, but I get like little glimpses of it, and it is beautiful. um let's see. So I want to make sure we have touched on so much. Is there anything that we have talked about that you want to touch on further or go deeper on before I answer or ask my next question?
Well, something I do want to talk about is that, like, I offer coaching in trusting your intuition and learning how to read tarot cards and getting attuned to Reiki energy, which is another self healing practice that basically, it's an ancient Japanese energy technique where you can channel the energy of the universe, the good, bright light energy, but through the universe, through the palms of your hands. And you can use it on yourself, you can use it on your plants, your pets, your friends. And as you go through deeper layers of attunement, you can start to use it on strangers and people across the globe. But it's really beautiful practice that, again, it really requires you to tune inward to feel this like pulsing, warm energy coming through your hands, and to recognize that this energy is ancient and it's part of us. And it can heal us. You can use it for emotional healing. I've worked with clients where right when you get to their heart chakra, they just burst out into tears. Or sometimes people that have insomnia, you can do Reiki on them and they'll finally be able to sleep. It's also been used like at the Mayo Clinic for cancer patients to help them with their coping of all the awful physical ailments and emotional ailments that come with cancer treatment. So I just think that there's so many beautiful magical practices, and it's something that I'm really really passionate about, like being able to offer and teach to other people, because I think this is the thing. It's like you want to learn about these things, and it just seems like the ask is so big. Like the first step is too overwhelming. And I want to be that person that like holds the light, and I'm like, hey, look, like let's start here. Let's start building your intuition. Let's start tapping into the energy of the universe. Let's understand your birth chart so we can look deeper into your life's purpose, because that's where I think we really start to understand ourselves. And once we start to understand ourselves, we can start to heal ourselves. Our lives change. We get to live that magical life that we thought was impossible. You get to go to India on a one-way ticket. You get to like do those big things. Like you get to go big when you heal yourself.
And that kind of leads into my next question. So, what does what does the future look like for you? I mean, I know to an extent that is not up to us by any means, but generally, where do you hope to be in the next year? Is it still in India?
Yeah. So I have some big things coming up at this moment. In 4 days, I'm leaving, kind of on a trip that sounds like it's from a fairy tale. I'm going to an island in the middle of the Indian Ocean called Réunion. It's a French territory. It's part of the European Union, but it's in Africa. It's near Madagascar. If you are geographically minded, it's in South Africa. It's a tiny island near Mauritius. I met some people here in India about a year ago, actually, and we hit it off. And they asked me to come teach yoga on their island at their yoga studio. Um, and so I'm going to go. I have a 1 month residency there where I'll be teaching there starting May 1st, which I'm really excited about. And after that, I'm actually going to go to Paris. I'm going to do the Paris trip that never happened is finally going to happen. Going to see France for the first time, which is really exciting. I studied French in college and high school. It's like one of my first big obsessions before witchcraft. And I've never actually spoken French to a French person. um, so I'm excited that I have these two really big French trips coming up. And then ideally, it's still up in the air, but I am probably coming back to India for another year to continue studying with my teacher, who I haven't talked much about on this conversation. But I started practicing with a different teacher, not the big guru, back in December. His name is Chidananda, and we have like a really really good connection. The practice feels really really strong and powerful right now, and so I'm gonna hopefully come back and practice with him for another year.
That's amazing. I think that you are like the true definition of somebody going big. And I think for somebody to really tap into, like you said, their full potential and that true purpose that we all have, I think, a deep desire for, you have to be able to trust yourself and you have to be able to lean on that intuition, because at the end of the day, again, is it's not going to be somebody else giving it to you. You have to do it for yourself.
100%. 100%.
I thoroughly enjoyed this conversation today. If the listeners loved this conversation as much as I did and want to work with you or just learn more about what you do, where can they find you online?
Yeah, they can find me at risenm.com. The NM used to stand for New Mexico, but now it stands for Nurture Your Magic. And
Love
I'm
that.
I'm on Instagram as rise.nurtured.magic.
And those links will be in the show notes, so you guys can head over there to click those. And Gina, is there anything else that you feel you want to share before we wrap up this episode?
I just hope that somebody listening has decided to take a leap and trust themselves, because it's the first leap you take is just a beautiful parachute to so many more amazing experiences. So trust yourself, go for it.
I love that. And thank you so much for this beautiful conversation today. And I don't know, just thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was great.
Absolutely. And listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. We will catch you next time on the Women Going Big podcast.